Hi. My own parents hit their 80s when I was in my 50s, a time when I still had kids in their teens and early 20s. I then became the middle ingredient in that spread-too-thin role of caretaker. A lot of 50-somethings end up in that position. I was very concerned in those days that my kids stayed off drugs. And they're all fine now as they head into middle age themselves. So I didn't pay a lot of attention back then to the drinking going on with the older folks in my life. But I should have. Drinking eventually became a real problem for one of my parents, and as I have since learned, that happens a lot with the over 65 crowd. It's a problem easily missed by those who care for them too, from family members to healthcare professionals. This is especially true when dealing with elderly, staunch, and upright citizens, where drinking was never, ever a problem. Why on earth would they suddenly become boozers in the last years of their long and productive lives? Ever heard that saying, old age isn't for sissies? It really isn't. Old age often arrives accompanied by social isolation, loneliness, increased physical limitations, pain from both major and minor ailments, including arthritis in hips, knees, hands, neck, back. Since I'm now among their number, I can vouch for all those arthritic pains. In my peer group, what there is left of them, we joke about calling our talks about health problems an organ recital. Unlike youthful drinkers, who drink to socialize and often end up in treatment after getting a DUI, drinking for the elderly is more often medicinal. Old folks often have poor night vision or other physical disabilities that keep them from closing down the local tavern at night, and that makes them stay-at-home drinkers who seldom drink and drive. But many never hung out at those local taverns anyway. These were people, after all, who had careers and families and lots more important things to do. For some, if they drank at all, it was the occasional nice cold beer on a hot summer day, or maybe they would toast in a new year with the lift of the glass. A large number of them, and of those who turn to alcohol for comfort as they age, are women. These are the widows in their golden years who have become the fastest growing subgroup of alcoholics because they manage their grief with alcohol to numb it. And there are many other reasons why both men and women can get hooked on mind-altering chemicals later in life. Those who defined themselves by what they did for a living can now suffer feeling their life lacks any importance, which leads to depression. Others become fearful as they become less and less physically able to meet life's challenges. Aging people experience more life changes than those they had when they were small children. Time of great change, you could trust me on that. Financial insecurity or loss of independence, they just cause fear. Becoming physically incapacitated can force a senior to move out from their memory-stuffed home and into assisted living facilities. Huge change. Or they may have to live with their adult offspring, where role reversal comes into play and they start being treated like children. That's a hard one to take, too. And last but not least is loss and grief over the deaths of old friends who take a piece of us with them. They take all our memories. And even those old celebrities that they never even met, but who helped define their own earlier life. With those losses comes knowledge that one's generation is dying off. Knowledge confirmed daily by the obituaries in the local paper. The special grief of losing a lifelong spouse also means there's no one to hold them accountable when they reach for that bottle to ease their pain and loneliness. Having a drink or two, or using doctor-prescribed pills to feel better, can seem like a legitimate means of escape from those many problems of aging. Both have social approval, and they work, at least for a while. The drinker of any age group who wants to drink can always find a reason to reach for one. The problems begin when they reach more and more often until they become well and truly hooked. They become addicted. And elderly drinkers can continue drinking long after a problem has developed because their families either condone their drinking, which sometimes happens, or they're not comfortable about confronting them about it. It's a hard thing to do. You hear this, my mom says a little wine is good for her heart. Who's going to argue with that? Or, Grandpa's a strong-willed old coot. He says he's not drinking too much, and that if he ever does, he'll just quit. Who wants to argue with that one either? And then there's Grandma cannot be addicted. Those pills were prescribed by her own doctor. Well, the elderly are perhaps the ones most at risk for this form of addiction. They're hurting. They seek medical help. Prescriptions for addictive pills get written. Part of that problem is that doctors can easily miss the signs of substance abuse or dependency because all the other physical and behavioral changes that are taking place then in their elderly patient mimic them. So prescription medication use in the over 65 crowd is epidemic. And while medicines and medications for illness are valuable for many people, the downside is these drugs have side effects. And when Grandma's daily pill regime includes highly addictive opiate-based pain medications, which she then boosts with a drink or two at lunch or dinner, she's in real danger of landing in the hospital emergency room, or even the morgue. And the same is true when Grandpa washes down his Ambien with a few nightcaps and later heads to the liquor store at a trip he may not even remember taking, followed by a drinking bout he won't remember either. It's never too late in life to develop an alcohol or drug problem. However, with education and treatment, seniors have just as good a chance to recover from addiction as younger people do. Many white-haired members of AA groups are very young in their own recovery. They often arrive mad as hell after being forced into treatment by concerned relatives. Once they settle in, they blossom in a way familiar to all AA members. Because AA banishes their loneliness, and their lives take on new purpose in helping others find sobriety. Those young old-timers in AA soon acquire elder statesman status, and they become some of AA's most useful and beloved members. Once free of alcohol and drugs, seniors return to being useful people, freeing themselves to rekindle enthusiasm and pursue adventures that make their golden years truly golden. Substance use, whether drug or alcohol addiction, can affect people from all walks of life. Nobody is immune. But old folks especially don't get well without some kind of intervention. So it may be time to seek some medical help or social help. If an elderly person in your life is sleeping more at strange hours of the day or night, using drugs, alcohol, or other substances every day, using chemicals as a way to relieve negative or uncomfortable emotions, spending money on drugs or alcohol that they really can't afford to spend, choosing to spend a lot more time alone, having a shorter temper and being more irritable and aggressive, or having any other noticeable behavioral changes. I would personally love to see classes on alcohol and drug abuse offered through senior centers or even through the Department of Motor Vehicles. Family caretakers would really benefit from education in this area too, especially since some of those combinations of alcohol and drugs can be fatal. Alcoholics Anonymous has literature available offering recovery stories of members who arrived in AA after the age of 65. Anyone, seniors, doctors, caretakers, family members, nurses, may contact AA headquarters for that information. And you'll find that contact information below in this video's written description. There's a real need for making information about the dangers of drug and alcohol abuse, especially about the dangers when using such appears to be escalating. The elderly need to know these things. And if help is needed, get some. There's lots of it out there available. I want to credit the source of much of the information for today's video to the excellent book about recovery called A Hole in My Road. It was written by a lovely old fellow, my brother Robert, who, like me, also got sober in 1981. He then went on to become an addictions counselor. His book is available through Amazon and is highly recommended. My next video, which will be posted on September the 21st, is about the experience women have in the AA fellowship. You won't want to miss it, ladies. And you men won't want to miss it either, because from it, you'll learn some amazing things about your sisters in sobriety. And until then, please always remember that recovery from alcoholism begins with just one sober hour. You can do this. Keep sober.